the N4 had exploded because of pouring graffiti in the guitar. Have you read the Wall Street Journal? I said, I quit high school. I don't read the Wall Street Journal. You know, More Than Words is a hit. Nuno Bettencourt playing guitars, and that's why the stock went up. Do you pay us to play the guitars? Because no, nobody pays anybody to play guitars. Like, no, I'm not interested in that. I want my Strat to feel like a normal Strat feels on Yngwie, because he's a giant, nice and small, and I can control it. And everybody at Washburn used to be annoyed with me because they'd always want to add things and do colors, and I'm like, no, man. It's a workhorse, and don't do a finish, because what I loved about mine is that it ages with you. So it shows you how much you play and how much you work and how much you tore and how much you sweat. Mine had blood on it. The lights go down. He turns back to the boat where all the guitars are. The double neck is gone. Stolen. Right off the stage while the lights are down.
Hey everybody, it's Derek over at Mastersofshred, and I want to thank you for tuning in to a very special episode of Excursions here at the Washburn USA Custom Shop. And we're about to go look back and forward to one of the most iconic guitars in the shred world to date. I'm talking about none other than Nunobettencourt's Washburn N4. And who better to do that with than the man who built it, Chris Meade, and the man who was on stage for decades ripping this thing to pieces, the mighty Nunobettencourt.
Wow. And I just appeared. Chris, what's up, Chris?
And I'm here too.
Yeah.
And you're sharing a mic.
Yeah, now I feel like I'm working for MTV. Let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Thank you guys for letting me come out here, right? And thank you for coming out to do this. You're going to be playing tonight. We don't want to say where. That may give everybody where we're at. This is a top secret location, so we won't get into that. So let's talk a little bit about this guitar, because there's a lot of history of this guitar, and literally it hit the scene in large numbers as far as being sold to the public around 91, but it was around before then. You were playing it even as early as 89, when there's videos of you out in Japan with Extreme playing it. So before we get to the Washburn N4, let's talk about the origins of how we got to the Washburn N4. What were you playing before that?
Well, I'm glad you asked. No, listen, what was I playing before that? Probably not much before that. I had a Kramer at one point that got stolen, and then I've said before in the past, my family, we didn't have a lot of money. I was the youngest of 10 kids, a lot of musicians. It was amazing, but I never had my own guitar, so I couldn't afford it. So whenever I'd go to Wurlitzer in Massachusetts, in Worcester, Massachusetts, I used to get kicked out of that place for just wanting to try all these guitars I couldn't afford. These Strats and Les Pauls and Kramers, all sorts of guitars at the time, Charvels, Jacksons, and used to dream about, man, one day I'll own one of these things. And after being thrown out for the 50th time on my way out that day, I saw a bin, a plastic bin of just parts, and one was a lefty neck that nobody bought for a long time, and they were all made out of Warmoth parts. So there was body with no paint, nothing as raw as you'll probably see today. And I was just like, how much for these? And they were super cheap. So got them, put them together, and that was the beginnings of the N4. I took it to a friend of mine, Jim Meradian, who we have a history with, and which is how I met Pat, who worked in this guitar shop, which was really interesting. And I just told him to take, I don't know, about that much, a couple inches off the whole body, because I'm not like you. I'm not the Hulk. I'm kind of Robin in Batman, not Batman. And that was it. It was born. It was just no paint because it was just, that's how they came. Couldn't afford to get it painted. Didn't want to get it painted. I kind of liked that it was wood. And at that time, we're talking 80s, right? So it was the opposite of wood guitars. Everything was fluorescent greens and pinks and reds. All the Vi guitars that were coming out, all the gems, everything. And yeah, so that's basically where it started, was just from parts of affordability in a music store.
Right. Okay, and then Washburn comes into the picture, right? And I'm sure at that point you probably had a good pick of who you wanted to go to, because there was a lot of praise around you're playing in '89 with the first Extreme record. Everyone was saying, oh man, I actually have, as I showed you, the 1991 issue of Guitar Player magazine. Everyone's like, everyone said, oh, well, let's see, this hotshot kid has what it takes. The first album, okay, whatever, but I can hear some Eddie, I can hear a bit of that. And they're like, but then you hear Porno Graffiti, and it's like, oh my gosh, he went all out. This album is it's Nunobettencourt. So, to kind of talk about that, getting in from there to there, you've had some offers probably, but how'd you stumble with Washburn?
Nobody cared, by the way. Nobody cared. After the first album, I didn't get calls from anybody. As a matter of fact, I didn't even think about it because I never knew that you could do endorsements and stuff like that. I was in, my own world, and I didn't know. I know people, I figured, if you saw anybody clapped and playing guitar, it was just they played the guitars they wanted. And I didn't know that the company would reach out. But I remember like the first album, there was Washburn rep reached out to me, and he said, listen, and called back in the day, back in the 1900s, as I always say, where literally like my mom handed me, the curly cord on the phone and stretch it all the way until it goes like, somebody's on the phone for you. And they said, look, my rep there said you're a great guitar player, wanted to talk to you about us, working together. And I was confused. Like, what do you mean working together? Like, yeah, we make you a guitar, we give you guitars to use. And I'm like, and I said, but I don't want any guitars. I like the guitar that I'm playing. And they said, well, but, maybe we can, do an endorsement where we have these certain models. And I was like, and the first thing I said, because, we didn't have a lot of money. So I knew I was starting to go on the road, and I used to always have summer jobs to try to make some money, and I'd give all a check to my mom because we had a big family just to feed everybody. All of us would kind of pitch in. So I said, wait, do you pay us to play the guitars? He goes, no, nobody pays anybody to play guitars. It's just like we give you the 2 or 3 guitars and we support whatever. And I'm like, nah, I'm not interested in that. And they said, but wait, he goes, yeah, it's kind of unprecedented. I go, well, look, I don't want to play any of your guitars. I want to play mine. And B, I'll do it if you give me, like, it was something crazy, like $200 a month so I can send to my mom while I'm on tour so she can, I can make sure like I still work. And they were like, okay. And I was like, well, which guitar are the catalog? I goes, I want to use mine. And he goes, oh, so you want us to make the one you have because it was out of parts and it was smaller. And I said, yes. So then when they finally did it and they looked at the guitar, they said, okay, so now we're going to go do some colors. What do you want? I go, I don't want any colors. I want it to be wood. And they're like, we can't do a wood body. Nobody does just a wood body. And I said, and I don't want any finish either, oil. And they were like, nobody's going to buy these. Nobody's going to be interested in these. And I'm like, well, then we don't have a deal. I don't want to do it. And, because they wanted to do all sorts of colors. And I'll never forget going out. Once they did it, they agreed to do it. I'll never forget being at the first Namm show I'd ever been to. And at the time, I remember walking into this place going like, oh, I'm in space, and seeing the massive area of just what Fender had or what Gibson had, big areas. And even Ibanez at the time were massive. Ibanez was ruling. And then when I went to the Washburn side, it was the side of what me and you are right here now. And they had a little counter and they had like little booth. And I was just like doing a sign. And I was like, wait, you want me to do a signing? Like nobody knows who the hell I am. And I'm not sure that anybody showed up. I would just sit there where people, maybe 2 or 3 people walk by and you're like, yeah, what's your name, whatever. And I remember walking over and the difference, you talked about Porn and Graffiti coming out. And I'll never forget going back the second year. And it was completely different because now Porn and Graffiti's out, More Than Words have come out. And I remember walking into this place now, still seeing the massive Ibanez and everything else. But all of a sudden, I had seen wood finished bodies in almost every guitar department because the N4 had exploded because of the Porn and Graffiti and the guitar.
Nunobettencourt of Extreme. His guitar of choice, the Washburn N4 Signature Series. Washburn Guitars. What a great guitar should be. Available at finer music dealers everywhere.
And I was just like, and my manager had sent me, I was at home in Hudson, Mass. He goes, have you read the Wall Street Journal? I said, I quit high school. I don't read the Wall Street Journal. And he goes, go get the Wall Street Journal. I'm like, why? He goes, you know how they had all those little kind of columns of different stocks? He goes, and it literally had one. He goes, look at the center one. And it said U.S. Music at the time. It said, had gone up. The stock went up like 3 or 4 times what it was. And it said Nunobettencourt playing, More Than Words is a hit. Nunobettencourt playing the guitars. And that's why the stock went up for this company. And to the point where I was like, what is going on? I had no idea what was going on. So until I got to Namm. And all of a sudden, we had the same size area that like they had.
Wow.
And I was like, there's a line of people. It was just really interesting to see like this punk from Hudson, Mass. Who didn't want to, didn't want any paint on or anything else. They said it would never sell the guitars. And of course, I'm a stubborn prick. So and it worked out, man. And it was interesting to go and see, all of a sudden see other companies that were doing some wood finishes and stuff, and just doing oil and not doing like even lacquer, or not doing proper finishes like
That's true.
coffee and some of that stuff. It was really cool.
The only other person I could think of that had bare wood finish, right? Maybe around that time, I'm not sure. I'll get fact checked on this. Was Jason Becker with the numbers, but that was not a production model guitar till I think like Peavey took a stab at it in the mid '90s, and then it got passed around like Paradise, then it hit Kiesel. So that was never a thing. But that's the only other place I've ever seen a natural guitar. So I think you are the first one.
Yeah, look, I probably, as far as production or anything, I'm sure I'm not the first one. As a matter of fact, this wasn't done on purpose. It wasn't until I used to, when we grew up, obviously through the '70s, I remember, oddly enough, there was a guitar that Joe Perry had. I think that was wood. It might even had I don't even know if it had a lefty neck or not. But people go, why is your neck upside down? It's because of Hendrix. I'm like, no, that was the neck that I could afford. Nobody would buy the lefty. There were no lefties. Lefty guitars probably still sitting in stores. Nobody buys them. Yeah. And I was just like, fuck it, I'll just put on a lefty. I was like, it's cheap. It was like $20 or something. I don't know. They couldn't get rid of it. So it's like, that's why. And then when they did the guitars, like, of course you want to go back to your normal, I was like, no. Just leave it upside down. Leave it the headstocks up, and it was fine. So
I personally prefer reverse headstocks.
I always thought it was super cool, man. I thought it was super cool. But I mean, that's the gist of the wood and cutting the body down, and the N4 bodies. A lot of people probably don't realize, because they still are a Strat shape, that they're that much smaller all the way around than a Strat body. Because I always felt like Strats were big on me. Right. I wasn't a big guy, so I always felt like I wanted to fit a little bit. I want my Strat to feel like a normal Strat feels on Yngwie, because he's a giant, nice and small, and I can control it, Right. So that's one knob. I remember telling him I don't want tone control. I don't want to simplify. And everybody at Washburn used to be annoyed with me, because they'd always want to add things, to do colors, to do everything that everybody else was doing. I'm like, no, man. It's a workhorse. And I told him, I go, don't do a finish, because what I loved about mine is that it ages with you. So it shows you how much you play and how much you work and how much you tour and how much you sweat. Mine had blood on it from different nights and stuff. So I always thought it was really cool to have a guitar that kind of aged with you a little bit. And I didn't realize how much warmer they were without paint.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Once we did some models with paint, I'm like, oh, cool. I kind of got excited about playing some black ones and different ones in cream. I was like, oh my God, so much brighter. And I didn't realize how much a part of my sound, even browner than brown, if you will, was so important to not have paint on it. Or the finish, probably, predominantly.
Yeah. And I think, was your guitar one of the first guitars to ever feature the Stevens extended cutaway?
I think so. I think it was kind of like...
Is that something you brought in, or was that Washburn?
No, it was at the moment. At the moment, they were talking to me about this guy, Stephen Davies.
Internet.
And talking about how I had an idea of, like, I always hated on bolt-ons that whenever I'd go play up top, they always stuck out. You could never get your thumb. It would be like behind the plate and all that. So I always thought, I kept telling him, man, can we come up with something that maybe, and then they said, well, we know this guy that, I think he was out of Washington, wasn't he? Like Seattle area, that he's doing these guitars, his own model, and he has this shark fin thing. I'm like, get him on the phone, let's go. Like, and he was like, great. Like, so he started making these guitars, we put them on and kind of combined that Stephen, Davies Cutaway with mine. And he was probably the happiest ever, because I was like, I probably should have designed my own. Like, I wasn't very business oriented. I probably would have made a lot more money if if they said, do my idea. But I didn't care about that stuff. I still don't. And he had already done it, and it was really interesting and great. And I thought it was another piece that made the N4 very different from everybody else.
Absolutely. And also for your playing style, when you're playing that low as you do,
yeah,
It's got to help a little bit when you're doing those string skipping stuff you do.
Yeah,
right?
who else played like that's the
Right.
worst thing you could do in the world. I always thought it was kind of silly why people had the neck up top, but I would be so much better live if I could do that. When you sit up there and you put it up top, oh my God, it's like, I think straps were made to have the height as if when you're sitting down, because it's easy to play sitting down. But like down here, after watching Page at Madison Square Garden, Song Remains the Same, I was like, there's no way I'm going back up again.
It is a lot.
I will play as sloppy as he did, no problem.
No problem at all. And then you also, the pickup choice. To be real, was anybody, I mean, I don't know what the exact time that Dimebag used Bill Lawrence, but I think the first time I ever saw it was really with your guitar.
Oh, yeah, I was doing it before Dimebag.
Right?
No, you know what? But that's another, what do you call it? Like a kind of happened not because I wanted a Bill Lawrence blade pickup. It was another cheaper pickup because nobody was using blade pickups for anything. You saw them in some guitars, but the second I put that in and I got used to it, and there was something about it, like I said, I'm a high school dropout. There's something about me going and looking at a blade and going, wait, isn't that the best for when you're bending and stuff, and it's just covering all the strings all the way across, so everything's evenly and everything placed. So for me, I was just like, listen, I don't, I'm not good at math and physics and all that, but I thought that just made sense to me. And then they went out of business as well. And I didn't know that Bill Lawrence was a guy named Bill who just sat in this little spot somewhere and making pickups like under the onion. And then all of a sudden I told those guys, that's the one I want on the N4s. They're like, the guys, they're going out of business. Well, put him back in business. Call him. I'm sure so they literally said, hey, we're doing all these guitars. Do you want, and Nuno wants these pickups. And he was like, are you kidding? So like literally, between me giving Stephen Davies that money and then Bill Lawrence, I'm like, I should have done my own pickup. I should have done nah. But that's what it was. It was just it seems like now that we're talking about it out loud, it's like it is a kind of a bastard child of like parts like that nobody does or nobody uses. No paint, the Bill Lawrence pickup, the Cutaway, the lefty,
reverse headstock,
the lefty
right,
neck, the whatever. It's like, so it is. It's kind of like a, it's a mess.
Well, here's something too. I heard that there was like a special pot that was used on your earlier ones called a memory lock. Is that what it was? So you could get to clean, they called it, a little quicker you could find it?
I had a metal stopper, so my guitar would never turn all the way off, never turn down all the way, because I had a metal stopper that we put underneath the volume pot that had like, it was like a gate that I would just flip really quick, flip the volume real quick, and it would just hit the metal thing, and that's where my clean sound was. I never had a clean sound. My clean sound was in the distorted area.
Right.
So, yeah, I forgot about that. My God.
So that never got carried over.
That never got carried over. I had it always in the early years for everything, and then I was like, I think I want to like turn my guitar down all the way and do some volume swells.
So that had to go.
Yeah.
And you had some crazy ones throughout the 90s too. I told you a little bit about this earlier. We were actually talking about this, me and Chris, was that the N61s were humbucker 2 singles, kind of a different look, right? Towards mid-90s?
Yeah.
The scene was changing a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And you had the N8, which was an ads. We talked about that a little bit. The double neck, which was a beast. That never actually went in production, did it?
They made a few of them.
I think so.
They made a few.
Do you still have yours?
Yeah. Mine, well, there's an interesting story about that one. I had mine. There was that, and there was a backup one. Backup one a friend of mine had. But my main one that I used on the Punchline tour, waiting for the Punchline tour, I played Wholehearted on it, and I used to use for different stuff. We were on tour with, I want to say ZZ Top, I believe, and we were like in Salt Lake City or something like that. And imagine, this thing is, it's a piece of furniture. It's a piece of furniture. It's a double neck. So imagine you're in an arena stage, lights go down, and we'd start the set. And every time my tech would like make sure he'd come around, watch, make sure I was good for the half of the song, first song. And then all of a sudden, we got to this medley where I was supposed to use it. And he comes out and he hands me my normal 6-string. I'm like, no, it's Wholehearted. What are you going to do? He goes, just take this. I'll explain later. I'm like, uh-oh. I'm like, and he just goes, he didn't want to tell me what was going on. But in the meantime, what happened is the lights go down. He's watching me. He turns back to the boat where all the guitars are. The double neck is gone. Stolen. Right off the stage while the lights are down waiting for us to start. And somebody was just waiting, and the tech left the area, like from here to there. He turns around, he says, it was just gone. I'm like, what do you mean it's gone? How does somebody just walk out with a double neck? And he
there's no
goes,
case for that,
so it had to
right?
be an inside job or something, security or somebody or a tech or another roadie or something like that. So while we're playing, they shut down the whole arena, and the tour manager's going from room to room, seeing if somebody has it. Nowhere to be found. Somebody just must have walked right out the door with it, with credentials or whatever, put it in a car, left it, put it on a bus, something. Gone for years. So I lost like the original double neck. And what's crazy about the story is 5-6 years later, I'm at home and Carl from Washburn, Carl Stalker, calls me. He goes, are you sitting down? I'm like, what? What's up? He goes, you're never going to believe what I'm looking at in my office in Chicago. And I go, what is it? He goes, your original double neck. I'm like, what? He's like, I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, it came and it showed up with a letter in it. And it was this letter, and this guy says, I want to return this to Nunobettencourt, and I want to tell him I'm sorry that I have his guitar for taking me. All this, it was amazing, and it was all because it was part of it was part of that 12-step program. Like he was in AA, or he went in for something, and you have to do something like back that you regret, that you do whatever. So he returned the guitar out of guilt and part of the program, and he wanted to make amends. And he returned the guitar. And I was thinking, after he returned it, probably like 6 months later, he's getting trashed in the bar going, I can't fucking believe I gave that guitar back. He's probably like, what the fuck? But what the fuck, right? I get it. I got it back. I couldn't believe it.
So you have it now?
Yeah, I had it. Yeah.
When was the last time you played that thing?
Oh, man, it's been forever.
You have to bust that out.
Yeah.
Just people would love to see that video. So let's fast forward a little bit, because you've had a lot of great models, and there's now a lot on the market from Washburn. We have a vintage model, we have an authentic model, and now we have a 4N model too.
All made by this guy right here.
That's right.
All made by the mighty Chris Meade. So let's start talking about this. Feel free to chime in. Let's talk about the differences. Maybe we should move this maybe to one of the areas where we can look at the necks and stuff like that. You want to do that? All right, so let's talk about the neck profiles on there, because there's a lot of N4s on the market, as you mentioned earlier. The authentic, we got the vintage, we got the 4N, and some of the profiles differ a little bit. And there's a little bit of a story behind that too. So, Chris, help us out with this.
Okay, so when I started working with Washburn way back in the early 1900s, they gave me digital files of the necks that they were making. And so I made a couple as prototypes, test, let everybody check it out. Turns out they were just like what they were making. And then Nuno and I had a conversation, and they weren't really what he was playing. So I went out to a show once, I measured the 4N guitar, and then I started making the 4N based on what Nuno was playing today. Those other guitars were like old guitars. So
First gens in a way.
yeah. So you had an authentic, which was just like the guitar from Porn and Graffiti. And if you buy one today, it's a guitar that's beat to shit. It's been played forever. It's been road worn. And it looks that way. All the hardware is corroded, the whole deal. Then we have the vintage. The vintage is a lot like that guitar, except it's a guitar that's been taken care of. So it's still old, has a little bit of dirt on it, has a little bit of wear, but it's one that you would have pulled out of the closet. Then we have a couple that are, like in here we have some swamp ash. Then we also have some walnut, you know that. We have Padauks. So those are, the whole body and the neck is made out of Padauk. Ebony fingerboards across the board.
And those are sometimes, like, would you say those are limited release models for that year, because they're not falling completely under the vintage or the authentic, but they do have the traits of a authentic in the sense of the hardware, because I think the authentics have the real Floyd Roses, the
German
genuine,
Floyd.
and
Yep.
the vintages have the Floyd Rose 1000s, right?
Exactly.
So when you see the Padauk and you see the Walnut, they have the features of the authentic in that way. They're not worn, but they have those acclimats. They got
Those are new guitars. Those
Okay.
are, they don't have that road-worn thing.
Okay.
We only do the relic stuff on authentics and on
Authentics.
vintages.
And vintages, okay.
Yeah, the Padauk and the Swamp Ash, they both have the Korean Floyds, which in my opinion, they're great. They're really, really well made. They're not as expensive as the German Floyds. There's a couple little things about them, but they're still great bridges.
Well, there's something to be said about that too, because what I've heard, I don't know if you want to confirm or deny this, Nuno, but I heard that you do rock a Floyd with the German plate, and the saddles are from a Korean Floyd.
Listen, man, I don't want to start any controversy.
All right, plead the fifth on that
I'm
one.
I'm an equal opportunity employer, man. I try to hit all sorts of all cultures within. I'm not sure that that's true. Is that true?
It's 100%
It's true.
true.
I told you.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
I knew
Okay.
exactly why I did it.
Okay, it's for tone, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, we talked about
Different accents on the.
Exactly. We talked about the way that the Floyd saddles are stepped. And the original Floyd saddles, you have to put a shim under them. They're kind of, that's just the way they've always been. The Korean saddles actually have a real 12-inch radius. So there's no shims under them. It's just, and that's why I chose those saddles, because we talked about just the way that Nuno plays, the skipping up and down on the bridge. The original saddles were kind of a pain in the ass. So
Wow.
now I've just gotten notice that Floyd has a U.S. Manufacturing facility, and they're making USA-made saddles with a real radius.
Wow.
So,
I've heard
that's-
about that. They're like in Naples or Fort Myers, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Floyd Rose is down there. The shop that's doing it is, I think, in North Carolina.
Wow. So this is a good update then on
Yeah,
that stuff.
yeah, it's a great update.
Now, speaking of trims, the authentic, if we were to go back, as that model really relics what you had with Porno Graffiti, right? So you have a Kahler nut on there, and the original, I think, came with a Kahler Spider. Is that right? Had the Kahler Spider on the
Yeah.
original N4?
Yeah.
So, but on these ones, we have the Kahler Nut, right? But we have a Floyd Rose bridge.
So that's on the 4N because at the time that we did this, you couldn't get the Kahler. They just weren't making them.
Yeah.
Now supposedly they do. Haven't heard too much about them, so I can't verify.
So maybe down
But-
the road.
But the big thing was when I looked at Nuno's guitar, the fingerboard on that is really, really thin. And I figured, okay, that makes a big difference in the way that the guitar sounds. A regular Floyd nut is much taller, so you can't use that with the real thin fingerboard.
Right.
So had to go to the Kahler Nut, which they were still making, and put that on, but still the original Floyd, because there wasn't much. This was 4 or 5 years ago.
Right.
There wasn't much else that was really well made.
Right. So that might change a bit. And now, looking at these necks, there is a profile difference, right? We're talking about, for instance, the 4N, which is the newest iteration of the Washburn lines, one you're currently playing with your original. But I'm understanding that the neck's a little bit thicker
Of the ones before.
of the 4N.
So the 4N is a little bit thicker here
Okay.
than it is down at the nut. They're about the same at the nut as the Washburn from, I don't know, from 90s to,
Yeah, they were similar to the original one, the original N4 that I played.
Okay.
yeah.
And another good reason why I asked this is because there's been a lot of misinformation going around the internet. I mean, on a lot
No,
of different
that
things.
never
like-
happens.
Right. So, I was under the impression before I got in here that the 4N actually had originated from a guy who bought it, one of the first prototypes of the Stephen Davies.
You got it.
I got it. You see that? You're not going to give me that time, Internet. Stephen Davies, right?
That's right.
Of those models, and he said that he actually went to his garage and sanded it down because he wanted a little bit smoother. And then look at that. He sold it on eBay. That guy sold it, and Nuno got it. And then Nuno turned it into the 4N, and because he loved the profile he did in his garage so much. That turns out, as of right now, to be false. So I don't know what that story was about, but it was not about the 4N that Nuno plays today, right?
Yeah. With the
Okay.
because the 4N that I'm playing right now, or the N4 that I'm playing right now, that became the 4N.
Microphone too.
That became that became the 4N. The one that I'm playing now, it had got it from a friend of mine in the Netherlands by the name of Steven Sherman. Now, if Steven got it from this guy, we'll check it out. We'll fact check that. As long as it's not the ABC fact checking that I saw during the debate, but we'll check that. We'll see if that was the case or not. But yeah, that's it's definitely one that I got from a friend of mine in the Netherlands. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe time will tell on that. But we'll do another video that'll get 100,000 views talking about why it is a guitar. No, I'm just kidding. But that's very interesting to note there. And as far as the hardware, we did cover that. There is some changes as far as the bridge when you get to the authentic and versus the other ones. Now, there's some other models that have also made an appearance. When I first interviewed you in 2018, the Hard Rock, we were talking about the N24, which is the import model, and which are actually really damn good guitars. They play great, but that's on the lower level. If you want to get into the Washburn Nuno market, you can grab yourself an N24. Before that, it was the N2.
Yeah.
So the N2s never had the Stevens cutaway
No.
at all, which was always a bummer. And you could always tell when it was because you're like, oh, I know it's an N2. There's no cutaway on that. But the N24s were like, I think, the first import model to actually have the Stevens cutaway on it, right? Yeah. So very cool with that. And as far as the neck pickups go, you've always been a Seymour Duncan guy when it comes to that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've always look. One thing's for sure with me, which is really boring, is when something works, it just works. And I've tried, through the years, there's been pickup companies like, let's do your own model of pickup on both sides, where, neck and bridge. Tried them, they've made them, and the second I put them into a guitar, it just works the way it always worked for me. And I think with any guitar, I think you have to find, as a player, you have to find something that, your fingers, the best pickup, pedal, mojo, everything that you have is here, right? It's in your hands. And I think your pickup is just an interpreter of those hands. So you have to find out which one really gets your fingers to the amp the way you want it to. It's not really a right or wrong. It's something that just feels right for you, that the second you touch and you bend a string or you get a harmonic, and it happens when you want it to happen. And yes, it's your fingers, but the pickups and everything, the nuance of the pickups really, they're called pickups for a reason. They pick up your touch and your tone. So it's always been that Bill Lawrence and that Seymour, and it's just I've tried to let me grow up a bit and grow and try different things and try different models. But man, I always end up going back to the same thing.
Really?
Because it just sounds right to me. You know what I mean? It's been really difficult to move from that. Especially with things that people stop making. Whether it's bridges and parts and Bill Lawrence and all this stuff, it's really difficult. And some of the Bill Lawrence sounds different than others in different years. So, but at the end of the day, the good news is, just like anybody else, even if they play an N4 or 4N or whatever model, they got to make it their own anyways. And whatever that is, whatever nuance that is.
And these guitars, all the lines come with those standard pickups, right? Well,
Yeah.
except for the N2 does not. But I do think that all the authentic and the vintage and the Padauk and the Walnut ones you'll be doing all have the Bill Lawrence.
Yeah, everything that we make here is Bill Lawrence and Duncan 59.
Okay. So a lot of the differences come in the finish, what you're going to get with the finish-wise, and trim to some aspects, and your neck profile. And which generation of Nuno do you want to go for after? You want to go for the first gen or the second gen with the 4N, right?
Yeah.
Or you want to go for both? So those are the differences, right?
And that's the thing, those necks, you have one over there. They feel great. They play great. This is just a little different. And the thing about the way that Nuno plays is he's really comfortable, and he can tell the difference if something's not quite right. So what I tried to do was get as close to the neck that he plays today.
Right.
The other stuff is still great. I mean,
still
they
yeah.
feel awesome. Yeah, they're great guitars. But the idea with that guitar that we wanted to do was just kind of state of the art today.
Right. Got it. Now, outside of that, do you still play your acrylic N4?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played it since the Gen X tour, but yeah, I still have it. It's cool. I like it a lot.
Could we see a signature model of those drop? Maybe 10?
Really? You think people would buy those?
I think so. That's pretty incredible. Well, you guys let us know in the comment
What is
section
that
below.
like to make? Pain in the ass?
It's a giant pain in the ass.
Oh,
I've
charge
looked
double.
I've looked into it. Maybe. I'll leave it as a maybe.
Okay, and maybe we'll see the N8 make a emergence. Maybe the story you told us will just bring out everybody saying, yeah, we need to get that double neck N4. We really need that, the N8.
Yeah.
So
No.
we'll...
Listen, I've always wanted a double neck. Ever since seeing that Gibson that Page played, where I was like, man, that inspired me to get that made. That was it's a cool guitar actually. It plays really well.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
appreciate you
haven't
telling that
gotten
story,
to check one out yet.
Yeah.
It's very cool. So I think we got a good idea. Hopefully you guys have a good idea about the different models, the features. I just acquired one. I got mine over at Franklin Guitar Works, MIRC. Got one of the incredible walnut finishes in there, and it just blew my mind. I knew when I saw a picture, I had to have it. So I can confidently say this is the perfect addition to anyone's arsenal. And when you put it on display in your shred den, there's none other like it. It's an iconic guitar for an iconic player, built by an iconic luthier. So this is pretty big,
It's
guys.
definitely not built to hang on the wall to look at it and admire. It's more it's the play. It's to pick up and play
And age.
and bash it.
It's for you to age it.
It's
So
like
it's
a
for a
wine.
player.
It's like a wine.
That's
Fine
right.
wine. It ages with you. So.
And that's another thing too. We were talking about the woods. That Padauk, the Padauk, when you were hitting it, man, that thing sounded incredible. It's got a tone to it, tone woods.
No, I used it on the whole Waiting for the Punchline album in that tour. It's really unique. It's different. Actually, both my necks broke off of it. Both my necks.
Hold on for you.
Yeah. I hope you
Try to
can.
get closer to you. I'm like, you got that?
Both my necks broke. But yeah, no, that's actually I found that that guitar was stolen from a storage unit, the Padauk, and we found the body. Somebody in a trailer park was selling the body, so we got the body. We're gonna throw another neck
How long
on
ago
it.
was this? Was this pre-Craigslist or was this Craigslist? Could have been the bargain trader.
It might have been. It might have been Craigslist. I don't know.
Oh my gosh,
I don't know.
selling
Might have
the
been
body.
Selling the body. At least it wasn't a real body. It was a guitar body. But I'm sure they had some. I'm sure they had some bodies there.
Right.
Some other
That was
bodies.
the other listing.
Yeah.
Wow. And did they list it as Nunobettencourt, its own guitar?
I don't even think they knew. It was this. It's interesting because my Padauk. I was telling Chris earlier that they're all reddish and they all kind of look kind of the same. Mine, for some reason, had two black in the wood, had two dark stripes, perfect stripes right outside framing the pickup. And this guy in the valley in LA, he saw this thing and he's like, wow, the only other body I've seen that had these stripes. And he looked up magazine, he was in AB, and he reached out to me because I think you might want this. You know, he goes, I found this body and they were selling it at this trailer park, and then he gave it back to me. So it's just crazy. Between the double neck and that thing, I don't know what's going on.
Oh my
the guitars
gosh.
come, by the way, the guitars come home.
Yeah,
they come home,
right? They find their way home.
They find their owners.
That's incredible, man. Those things sound crazy too.
Yeah.
And you guys offer that as well. So you're gonna be doing a batch of those too.
We
Right?
actually just sent some out. So 20 of them, 24 of them just went out last week.
Wow.
2 weeks ago.
Where did they go? Nobody knows.
Just off into the world. They've been set free.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so if you want to get one of these, go to your local online retailer or your local store. Do those still exist anymore? Local music stores to a degree?
Yeah, I believe so. I think they're
One
there.
or two.
One or two? Right. Definitely not Sam Ash. God rest their souls. But anyway, check them out there. Make sure you guys, I would definitely add one of these to your collection. And of course, you guys can follow Nunobettencourt on Instagram. I think
Oh,
it's
yeah.
Nunobettencourt Official.
It's the most exciting Instagram you'll ever follow. Like I make pancakes and cook bacon and stuff like that. It's
Take
amazing.
a page out of the Rocks book, man. That's right. And you, of course, Masters of Shred. You can follow us there. Official, Mr. Shred Official. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. By the way, if you don't subscribe already after this, I may have to throw in the towel.
Cut the
okay?
bullshit. Subscribe. Don't be an asshole.
Thank you. Shred the notification bell. And of course, Chris, I would plug your social media, but you don't have it. So I'm proud of you.
See, that's
good.
That's a real true artist and a real true guitar makers. Like, greatness doesn't need advertising, Chris says. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
You know where to find me. You
The
can find
people
me.
that
Every
need-
time you pick up one of these guitars, you find me. That's my social media.
The people that need to know me, they know
They
me.
need to know. Like, it's kind of like mafia. Look at this chain. You gotta be careful. We gotta be careful over here. He's got people.
I do that.
And that's actually why I was so happy to be here. Because again, you are a private guy, and you let us come into your shop here and see this. This is so proud of us. So
Yeah,
very
by the
much.
way, he's never let me in before. So.
Really?
I didn't go to let me in because you came. So.
That's it. We made it happen. They got that Walnut N4. It has stepped into all of this, okay? Which is actually funny. We can talk about that story when I found that Walnut N4. But you know what? I should stay right here. I'll pull it. People don't talk about it because it's too funny. So when this came in, I texted Rob.
it's me.
Okay. I said, dude, you were so. When this came in, I texted Robbie. He texted Chris. I said, dude, Chris remembers the guitar completely. Said he's gonna hold on to it. He's thinking you want to keep it because he texted Chris. So good. Chris remembers the guitar completely. Said he was gonna hold on to it. He's thinking you want to keep it because now this thing good into the. And then I had to immediately. I told Rob it had to be done. So that's how this thing came into the shred. Let's go out there and talk about this guitar. Where it came from. It's so good. And I said, man, I gotta go out there and interview Chris. Let's go out there and talk about this guitar. Where it came from. It's so good. That's I got one better for you. You may want to
I
come
make
check out
probably
that.
between
You gotta be
15
kidding.
and 18.
That's how many of those ones insane because
I make
2 days
probably
ago
between
at our kind of
15 and
sound
18.
check there. It's insane. This guy pulled one out 2 days ago at our sound check. Sound check. Beautiful. This guy pulled one out.
Right.
And he just
So
said,
we
you know a guy that able to make it with both?
I might know a guy.
I know a guy who maybe
You know a guy that
at a show if they want to. So you should
I
take
might
it.
know.
I'm scared to be there. I know a guy.
They always come home.
Oh, they always come home. That's exactly right. On that, I'm scared to be
get
there.
that.
They
They always come home.
Oh, they always come home. That's exactly right. On that,
doing
you guys for watching, and we'll see you soon. They always come home. All right. Thank you guys again for doing this. Thank you guys for watching. And we'll see you soon. That is definitely good. Thank you guys so much, man.